Hello everyone, I'm Janet, one of the Litfest board members, and on behalf of us all, welcome to this evening's event and to the 42nd Lancaster Literature Festival. At Litfest, we're committed to delivering a varied programme of events across multiple genres within the literary world. After a successful opening weekend like Litfest 2020, unfortunately had to be cancelled due to COVID-19. So for this year's festival, the board has had to be creative and innovative in developing a programme of events which are diverse, inclusive, free and totally online. Thanks to support from Lancaster City Council, Arts Council England Project Grant and the National Lottery for funding streams which have enabled us to put together this year's festival with a variety of free events to suit all tastes and ages. The funding and support have also enabled us to run projects encouraging more people of all ages to read, create and share stories in Lancaster and beyond. But we need your help. We want to be able to continue to run high quality events and projects all year round, to run more projects to connect with audiences and to provide paid opportunities for writers, illustrators, storytellers and other artists, many of whom have faced unprecedented challenges during the past year. To do this, we rely on donations from you, our audience. So once you have enjoyed this event, please consider gifting via our website or via the donation button towards the end of the event. However big or small, anything you can afford to give will be very much appreciated. So to tonight's event, Litfest commissioned a selection of films exploring how we live now in Lancaster and the surrounding area. These films will take a look at the lives of members of our local community during a turbulent year. The films, directed by Lancaster-based filmmaker and producer McKenzie, explore themes of environmental concern, social justice, health, business, migration and the arts. And through these brief insights, we explore what modern life is like for 6 individuals who have had to respond or adapt to one of our nation's toughest years in recent memory. So this is where it gets a bit tricky and a bit technical, really. So we're going to go into session 2, where the film will be played. And this is to allow the best quality streaming, but means it needs a little bit of explaining. So when the film is about to play, you should be automatically brought into session 2. You may then need to wait up to a minute for the film to start playing. If you're not automatically taken into session 2, you need to click at the top of your screen. There's a little bar and it says session 1 of 3. And click on session 2, which is called the film screening. That will bring you into session 2, where the film will be playing. After the film finishes, you'll be brought into session 3 for a live Q&A with director McKenzie and 3 of our contributors. Rebecca Joy Novell, the Refugee Resettlement Coordinator for Lancashire, Geraldine Onek, founder of Lancaster Black History Group, and Morecambe-based artist Shane Johnston. So if for some reason you're not brought into session 3 after the film, please click the sessions at the top of your screen and select session 3, which is called Q&A. We'd love you to submit questions for the Q&A session, but if you could add these to the chat after the film finishes, because they might just get lost in the session 2 chat. And if you experience any issues, it might be helpful to refresh your page. So as the film is about to start playing, we hope you enjoy the premiere of How We Live Now and look forward to seeing you afterwards for the Q&A session. So sit back and enjoy the film.
Almost 1 year ago exactly, we were told that we were going into national lockdown. This interrupted lives. Millions of people were forced into a change in their lifestyles. Lancaster and Morecambe were no exception. Families were separated, businesses were closed, and livelihoods were lost. pandemic has affected us all in different ways, and everyone has their own story to tell. I can't tell everyone's story, but I can tell six. 6 stories from 6 individuals or groups who have adapted over the last year. These 6 stories explore the lives of people from the Lancaster district, the hurdles they've overcome, the redesigning of their practices, and the creating of something beautiful. Some of them might have created inspiration, hope, room for representation, new ways for rehabilitation, or a memory of home. Our first story offers a look at creativity in its most literal sense. The arts have suffered greatly over the last year, yet art has been a source of restoration and pleasure for many to help us get through these tough times. Perhaps art is more important now than it ever has been. Someone that helped me understand that is Morecambe-based artist Shane Johnston. Here is his story.
Yes, so what is the level of support from the government like the arts?
Government support is never fair if you're a northerner and an artist.
Care to expand on that at all?
No, move on to something interesting. I'm an artist, sculptor and educator whose work primarily focuses on socially engaged models of practice. I've got a long connection to the local area. I was born here. My mum was a seaside landlady and I began my career as an old school sign writer and fairground painter. Art has had a big influence on me from my very first day at school when I was introduced to powder paint. From that point, I've been an artist ever since. I started using the Knickerbocker Glory a couple of years ago when I wanted to do an object study, a still life. I used the Knickerbocker Glory as a metaphor for broken nostalgia, faded glamour and lost innocence. Just faded exotica of what Morecambe once was. And so I came to Bruciani's ice cream parlour and they gave me some space at the back, built me a Knickerbocker Glory, and I began to draw it and I began to photograph it. My intention was to paint it, but it was melting before my eyes. So I used that moment as the starting point to make a sculpture. And I made a Lego sculpture of a Knickerbocker Glory and then made different paintings of it in different styles and genres. And I chose to make those into large-scale posters and paste them up around the city and town, just to make a curious mark and enigmatic symbol for people to see. And so that curious, oblique, right-angled, blocky, solid shape represented the kind of like soft, luxurious, melting form, and it just fascinated me. And it remained a motif that I've gone back to. Of course, we're lucky to live where we live, and the landscape around here is inspirational. I suppose prior to the pandemic, the state of art in Lancaster and Morecambe was somewhere between thriving and surviving. Morecambe changes very slowly. you see the world change before and Morecambe follows slowly afterwards. That's not always a bad thing, but it is the way of the world and it's the way locally. Your motivation is always, for every individual, must be different. I make my art to be seen by other people. My art doesn't go into galleries, it goes into the street. And so I'm just communicating with the public. My reasons for making it haven't changed. It's more important now for me to communicate with my audience than ever before. And so that's what inspires me. For other people, it may be the landscape, it may be family, it may be love. I'd say just make it.
In times like these, it's easy to forget the bigger picture. Climate change, deforestation, pollution, resource depletion. These have all fallen into the back of so many minds, and we can't let this happen. But who better to remind us about this than young people? Young people have had to deal with the pandemic at a crucial point in their lives. Many have missed out on important milestones that the rest of us have taken for granted. But it's reinvigorating to see a powerful drive for change among young people despite all of this. This is the story of Emma Giffney.
I've lived here pretty much all my life. I've been going to school here, and I think at the moment with COVID, everyone's just sort of negative and needs something to boost the community. There used to be loads to do all around here. There used to be Frontierland, and it used to have the biggest Ferris wheel in Europe, I think. There used to be laser tag and Super Bowl with a massive arcade. But slowly all those things have just gone away, and it's just kind of a bit, I don't want to say destitute, but pretty much run down. There's lots of investments going on, you can see them, but they're not really for young people. Just growing up around here, I've always wanted to know what it was like when there was so much buzz about Morecambe, because it used to be known as like the Brighton of the North, and I've never seen it like that. So if I could make that happen, if I could some way be a part of the sort of pushing force into something amazing happening, that would mean a lot to me. The pandemic has just brought on so much negativity, and we're all just stuck indoors, and I think we really need to sort of embrace the environment and sort of be a bit more positive about it. So I got an email and I thought it sounded really interesting, so I thought I'd get involved. Northwest Youth Reading is a campaign made up of young people, which was originally started by Escape to Make. And we're just trying to raise awareness and hopefully encourage the bringing about of the Eden Project to Morecambe to sort of secure Eden North. So the Eden Project is sort of a way for a community to come together and sort of be enthusiastic about the environment around them and to enhance it and be sort of an escape from everyday life to come into these beautiful places that they've put together. We'd like to eventually, hopefully, be sort of a youth board for the Eden Project. As young people, we want to make a change. We don't really get a say in a lot else that happens. Everything starts with something small. So if I can be a part of that to bring a change that's going to be here hopefully permanently, I think that's going to be such an achievement for myself. I remember when we found out that schools were shutting, I remember crying for so long. We've all missed out on like having a last day leavers. I've really been looking forward to prom. I think I bought my prom dress in October. I was that excited for it, and I've never gotten to wear it, and that was quite devastating because you also don't get the experience of renting a nice car and being with all your friends and just enjoying the last time you might get to spend together. Instead, it all just kind of halted, and it was like all the work that I'd put in to like academically, putting all this work after my mocks hadn't gone very well, and just all just to come to nothing because exams were cancelled, and I was going to miss out on so much, and it just terrible. I think I kind of enjoyed lockdown at first because you could just sort of lie in, not do much, bit of time to relax, watching movies, reading a lot of books, which I've gotten into at the moment, reading. It's so nice to escape into a book away from COVID and just stuck at home all the time. I've been doing quizzes, online quizzes with my friends, sort of trying to see each other and having fun, so dressing up into different costumes and doing really random quizzes and playing games together online. It's not the same as doing it face to face, but kind of helps take up some of the time. And then a few weeks in, it was just got into such a slug and there wasn't anything to do. It was just so boring and you just wanted to get out and just go out and do stuff, whatever it is. When I'm feeling a bit stressed, I like to go out for walks up Torres Barrow, which I have a lot of nice memories. I used to go walking up there a lot when I was younger, sort of after school. I used to go up there and there used to be a tree and it sort of caved over itself, so it was like a little cave, and there was abandoned crates and we used to all just sit in there and play make-believe games. And I used to walk up at the top. I used to have not so good mental health, so when I was feeling really frustrated, I'd walk to the top and I'd scream, and because it's so windy, no one can hear you. It was really nice. Because you can see from Ashton Memorial in Lancaster to Heysham and across the bay. It's just nice to sort of, you can relax up there because there's not everything around you sort of being a bit like, covered this, covered that.
Migrating to another country is no easy task. It's even harder when you're migrating as a refugee. As a part of the refugee resettlement scheme, 20,000 refugees were brought over to the UK from Syria. They have made efforts to adapt to a whole new country, language, and culture. The women that I talk to in this next film, Malak and Breema, they've gone above and beyond to do more than merely adapting. They've used a creative outlet to share their culture with us. This is the story of the incredible women behind A Taste of Home.
ليش تركنا سوريا؟ بسبب الحرب، بسبب الخوف، الدمار حوالينا، كان الموت كثير بشع. يعني السبب اللي خلانا نقرر خلص لازم نطلع القتل، القصف، الخوف، الرعب علينا وعلى أولادنا، الرعب على مستقبلهم. دائما نفكر يا ترى منفيق الصبح ولا ممكن نموت بأي لحظة.
When I was in Syria, when I was walking in the street, a lot of people who has like rifles, guns, stop me at the street and take me. They said to me, just we need to talk with you 5 minutes. I have said to them, yes. They take me to the jail, hang me from my hands from here. They take me to another room and they have asked me, why did you make bad things for our government? I have said to him, you take me from the street. I didn't do anything. They start to hitting me, put my legs in the water. To be honest, in that moment, I thought they put electricity to me to kill me. Because we have heard a lot of bad stories for who going to the jail. It was terrible and awful moment there, awful days.
So I know Malak and Rima through the Refugee Resettlement Programme, and as part of my job as Refugee Community Development Officer for Lancashire County Council, that's how I met them, and this project was their idea, so it kind of came from them, and fortunately we were able to make it happen. A Taste of Home is a recipe book made by around about 100 Syrian refugees who were resettled in the UK as part of the Vulnerable Persons Resettlement Scheme, and the idea of the book is not only for them to share homemade recipes, their favourite recipes, but to show you a bit about their culture.
يعني الانجليز راح يستفادوا يعني راح يعني يجربوا هاي الاكلات، يعني في عدة عالم يعني جرب هاي الاكلات واستفادوا منها يعني تعلموا.
ممكن يكون نافذة على حتى العالم كلها، كل العالم تعرف مين هم السوريين، شو بيشتهروا، شو عاداتهم، شو تقاليدهم. شارك في أكثر من عائلة سورية موجودة بلانكاشير على عموم لانكاشير، فكتير كانت العائلات سعيدة ومبسوطة بالمشاركة بهذا الكتاب. هذا الكتاب بيحمل قصص هاي الأسر.
It's really important that people realise when you get on a plane to England from Syria or a refugee camp, you can only carry what's in your bags. So you might have 2 bags worth of belongings. So to be able to cook and bring your food is like bringing a part of home with you every single day. It was a real labour of love.
يعني أنا من ناحية أنا بحب يعني الشغل من أول شيء، يعني أنا لما كنت بسوريا يعني كنت بشتغل، يعني أهلي كانوا بيزرعوا يعني زراعة كنا نشتغل. يعني هلا بعد ما أجيت لهون أنا ماني متعودة يعني بقعد بالبيت يعني وبضل قاعدة. صار لي هالشغل هذا بس انبسطت فيه يعني واشتغلت كتير، يعني حبيت. واحد بيتعلم لغة يعني واحد بيتطور شوي، يعني استفدت كتير يعني بالشغل. يعني تعلمت، يعني كنت أنا ما بعرف يعني قبل يعني لغة يعني كتير، بس يعني تعلمت شوي يعني من طريقة الشغل وهيك، يعني تعلمت شوي أثر كتير. ما أنا كنت عم بشتغل يعني مستلم شغل يعني بمطعم، يعني هلا سكرت المطعم يعني ما ضل في شغل. كنا يعني مبسوطين، يعني واحد بيطلع بيفوت بيزور جيران وهيك يعني. أكيد يعني اللغة كتير. هلا أنا كنت حافظة يعني شوي، هلا يعني قعدت هاي يعني نسيت يعني نسيت اللغة يعني.
Malak and Rima and all the women I work with are without a doubt the most resilient, amazing women you could ever meet. You realise that both of them, Malak and Rima, have had everything taken from them and they're still suffering with it. Like the pain they live with every day is enormous, and yet you'll see from talking to them you'd never know.
يعني هيك يعني صار لي زمان يعني ما رحت على أهلي كتير، يعني صار لي شي 8 سنين ما شفتهم.
بسوريا؟
بسوريا.
إذا بصح لك تحكي كلمة لأمك مثلا أو لعائلتك، شو بتحكي لهم؟
بحكي لهم بركي إن شاء الله يعني بالأيام فينا يعني بنروح بنشوفهم يعني.
It was really meaningful to me that they wanted to share their own stories, because everything you see on the news about Syria is about death and destruction and the horror, and of course it's important for us to know that, but that has to be in the context of the life they had before. The whole idea of the book was for the reader to get a real strong sense of Syria, and when you interview them or ask Malak or any of the women where they identify home to be, it's always Syria. They've been here several years now in England, and some of their children have been born here, but Syria is home.
من بلد من بلدنا اللي تربينا فيه، اللي تعرفنا فيه على عادات، اللي عرفنا فيه عاداتنا تقاليدنا. كتير لما بيجي شهر رمضان بنحكي لأولادنا شلون كان شهر رمضان بسوريا، شلون الأجواء اللي صعب نعيشها ونحن موجودين هون. نحكي لهم عن ذكرياتنا، كيف كانت طفولتنا. بنحاول قدر الإمكان نقرب الصورة لأذهانهم، كيف كان الوطن، العادات، التقاليد، الحياة اليومية، لحتى شوي حتى يضل عندهم فكرة ويضلوا دائما متذكرين إنه نحن في إلنا بلد كان حلو كتير وتدمر.
Lancaster and Morecambe are populated with small businesses, entrepreneurs with bright ideas and the perseverance to grow and succeed. Yet, with non-essential businesses being forced to close, many have suffered simply to stay afloat. Shipwrecked Tattoo Parlour is one of the hundreds of businesses that have been rocked by the pandemic, and I had the chance to speak to a man whose passion for what he does keeps him going through hard times. This is Shane Gleaves' story.
How would you describe the year 2020?
How much am I allowed to swear in this?
Right.
I say 2020 was a show from start to finish. Well, I don't know. First month was all right. My birthday was in the first month, so that was nice. I'm Shane Gleave. I am a tattoo artist at the studio Shipwrecked in Lancaster. I've been working in Lancaster now for 4 years. I originally started tattooing in Morecambe, and me and my business partner decided that we wanted to venture to a bigger city. The university just being up the road, we get a fresh set of faces every year. I first thought it would start affecting us when there was news articles online saying that there could be a potential national lockdown with businesses, non-essential businesses being shut, which as a close contact service, that's what we come under as a non-essential service. It wasn't until that point I thought it's actually going to be a major problem. We just got told there and then, your business needs to shut. We were given 24 hours notice. Both me and my business partner have blasted through all our savings to keep it open. We get little bits from the government to sort of help us along, but it's nowhere near what we'd be making if we were actually tattooing like we were doing full time. We went out of our way to make everything safe. We ended up getting the staff in and clean the studio top to bottom. I could have probably eaten off the floors. We went overboard big time. And then we found out that the barber was allowed in, but we weren't. As tattoo artists, we weren't allowed to work. We were kind of left on the back burner for a bit. So that was a bit stressful. Obviously, we got some help at the start of the lockdown, but by that point, financially, we were starting to look like we weren't going to make it through the rest of the lockdown. And obviously, it works off all of us being in here, keeping it afloat rather than just one of us. So we had to find extra money and use all our savings just to keep it open. I'd say I'm proud of not had a full-blown mental breakdown. The first week or so, it was very much, oh, this is new, this is different. I since starting tattooing, I've never really had a holiday. So at first I was like, oh, this is quite good. It's like a forced holiday. This is great. And then after about 2 weeks, I was like, okay, I'm bored now. What do I do? Every sort of few weeks, I tattoo my girlfriend. She's kind of just been my guinea pig for the last few months. Every time we go into lockdown, I do a couple on her here and there. So that's quite good because it means that I don't go literally months without doing anything, and I can at least keep my eye in and carry on with some level of normality. I've got to obviously keep a certain standard, but also it's what I do. I don't do it because it's money, because I do it either way. If I was getting paid like doing something else, I would still be doing this. Even if I had to do it on the side, I'd still be doing this. I've taken a lot of time to learn how to do new forms of art. So I've been doing a lot of digital painting, learning, still keeping within the actual industry that I'm in, but learning how to use that in other applications. So painting, pencil drawing, and trying to find different ways of using my knowledge on art. It's not going to just go overnight like everybody thought it would. Everybody's at the new year, everyone's like, oh, 2020's over, 2021, it's going to be great. Well, why? Nothing changes. Like that sort of date from 2020 to 2021, that doesn't change. It doesn't stop a global pandemic. People need to realise that this is probably something that we're going to have to just adapt with and live with for quite a few years to come. I think it's going to be a difficult time, just with trying to get back into the studio and getting the studio open and functioning normally again. For me, it's been trying to find new ways of keeping my career going and basically just rolling with the punches and seeing what I come out with at the end and making the necessary changes to keep doing what I love. I'm more than happy to adapt whatever way I can to keep people safe. If it means I only get to tattoo one person a day rather than 5, then I'll do that. Or even if it means we need to add screens to stations and stuff like that to keep an actual physical barrier between the stations, I'll do that. Whatever I need to carry on tattooing.
At this point, we're all aware of the dangers of COVID-19. Many of us have either suffered with it or know someone that has. But something that doesn't get talked about enough are the possible effects that can linger after someone suffers with COVID. People of all ages have been helped by the Respiratory Rehab Team, a group of hardworking people who work on behalf of the NHS to treat those with lung conditions or breathing difficulties. Their work predates COVID-19. However, since the pandemic, their workload has increased significantly, and lots of things have changed for them. This is the story of Naomi and Helen, who have bravely put themselves forwards to help those in need.
We are the North Lancaster Respiratory Team. We're a small specialised team, and that basically is an exercise and education programme for people with chronic disease of the lungs.
It's been proven to be a really effective treatment.
It's recognised as a vital component in treatment for people with chronic lung disease. They managed to obtain funding for us to actually expand our service, and this was part of a whole project which expands the base. It's a very exciting project for us. We employed new staff. We were tasked with actually doubling the delivery of pulmonary rehabilitation. We'd actually reduced our waiting lists by nearly 2/3, and we were feeling, oh, you know, this is really what we want to do. And then COVID hit, and since then, you know, things have changed quite a lot.
Almost overnight, our service was. We were told we couldn't see our patients face to face. A lot of them had to go into shielding as well. Overnight, their support structure had also disappeared, if you like. They couldn't go out. A lot of them were frightened as well. They couldn't go out and do their normal activity. They didn't want to go to the supermarkets, so we were directing them where they could get help as well.
There was a lot of questions at the beginning. An immediate sense of being redundant on the job because what we did most and what we did best we couldn't do. But at the same time there was a need to adapt very quickly. So you're coming into an environment you weren't quite sure what you're coming into every day. You wanted to do the right thing continually and trying to find what the right thing to do was.
COVID-19 can be very dangerous. You can see by the numbers of cases in the hospital.
It's a bit like having an invisible lethal weapon.
Yeah, that you can't see.
That just, plunges us all into this different world of non-touch, and it's just permeated every aspect of life. If you work in the health service, you've got a few more notches on that lethal weapon. You've got couples who actually had COVID together, went into hospital and one partner woke up to find that the other partner's died. Too sick at the time to even realise that the partner had been admitted as well. It's unquantifiable how that must feel. A gentleman whose wife looked after him in every way at the beginning. His goal at the end of the rehab programme was actually just to be able to shave himself, so that one task he could do on his own, and which he achieved. So things you wouldn't think about if you weren't compromised by chronic lung disease. Those were the things that you find in pulmonary rehab that give you the great sense of pleasure and reward to see that that's happening.
We are very privileged to be able to go out and see these people and see how we can help them and see how we can hopefully get them on that path to recovery. I've got a 4 and a 2-year-old, so I'm busy with a 4 and a 2-year-old, but generally we like to get out and about. We like walking, getting some fresh air. That keeps me pretty busy.
Well, I was hoping to retire.
We're keeping hold of it.
It's sort of got elongated a bit more. What can I say? It's just, it changes with demand. You work as much as you need to work. There has been an attempt to use these times to the best advantage. We're constantly being asked, what ways of working would you keep now? We're trying to use every opportunity to say, we know this is a really difficult time and we've adapted, but what are we going to keep? What do we want to keep? And there are some things that we will keep.
We're not just the only people putting ourselves out there. You've got your teachers, your supermarket staff, you've got everybody who works with the community, with the public.
I don't think it's just the NHS. I think the whole world is very, very tired of COVID.
I think the NHS stood up and fought the challenge that was given to them at the end of the day.
It's not driven commercially, it's driven by need. And I think everybody's very proud of that.
Don't get me wrong, since COVID hit, it's been really tough. That sudden change of role, the uncertainty, it's been brilliant, really good and really positive, but it's been hard.
I'd just like to mention the community and the support from the community, because I think it's been absolutely phenomenal. I hope we don't lose, that's one of the other things I hope we don't lose going forward. Really been so magnificent, the actual way in which the community, especially in the first lockdown, came together, but it's still happening. The food banks, the olive branch in Lancaster, the things to be tremendously proud of for everybody living in the community.
Lancaster's history is widely known. We tell our children about the War of the Roses and the witch trials, and take them on historically significant walks to different places around the city. But one glaring omission is the history of Black lives throughout the centuries here in our city. One thing that the pandemic has offered to many of us is time. Time to educate ourselves. Time to become more understanding. And time for the Lancaster Black History Group to offer resources, information, and knowledge to the rest of Lancaster's population. This is the final film that I have to show you tonight. Please enjoy the story of Geraldine Onek.
My name is Geraldine Onek. I would class myself as a former refugee, if you want to call it that. So my parents originally came to Lancaster when I was 2. My father gained a scholarship at Lancaster University, and this was where we were going to call home. It was a big culture shock for my mum, I would say, and she really embraced it. She was like, if this is going to be my home, I'm going to embrace everything about it. The language, the culture, the city. And Lancaster has become our city. My youngest son was born in Lancaster. My mum still lives here. And it's from Lancaster I've been able to form the first group of its kind, the Lancaster Black History Group. Lancaster Black History Group is a grassroots community group. We consist of teachers like myself, teachers from secondary school, academics from the Lancaster University, and also local historians. We were established as a result of the Black Lives Matter movement last year. We wanted it to be something that acknowledged Black histories in Lancaster especially, and also to educate people, because we are believers that education can eradicate racism. And in order to do that, my mum has a saying, you can't go anywhere without knowing where you came from. So that's where we looked at our past, and it was our hidden past. Not many people know about Lancaster's involvement in the slave trade, let alone that we were the 4th largest slave port. So we had a lot of work to do. When we started this, we had no idea where it was going to go. Rebecca and I, were overwhelmed by the response, people who were keen to volunteer and engage and offer their services. And this is just a start. We always said we're in this for the long haul, and I think we're on to a good thing. Local Black history is what we're pushing. In the curriculum it says to learn about your local area and local significant people. So people like Frances Elizabeth Johnson. Frances Elizabeth Johnson was a Black servant brought from St Kitts. She was brought to be a servant at 20 Castle Hill. She was a servant who was considered a cherished member of the family. She later died, and the Satterthwaite family wanted a way to remember her. A cherished way would be to keep a part of her with them, and as gruesome as it sounds, they just cut off her hand, and this mummified hand was then passed down generations until 1997, when finally a descendant of the Satterthwaite family felt it was wrong to keep her hand, and she wanted to give her the final burial, and that is why now Frances Elizabeth's hand can be found in the grounds of the Priory. She has a little plaque, and you'll find her initials, Frances Elizabeth Johnson. As a group, we wanted to get her story out and still commemorate her. So there's a lot of work we're doing to remember her and also acknowledge that she mattered to Lancaster. We have history within our walls. Not many cities can boast of that. I discovered that the River Loon was where it all happened. We I've walked down there on school trips, and the River Loon is a quiet, calming area. However, during the slave trade time, it would have been bustling with ships, and that is where the cargo would come in via the triangular trade. So what we know as the Maritime Museum was actually the custom house. So any trade that came from the Caribbean would have been brought to the custom house and logged in the custom logs. Names like Gillows were the prolific people involved in the slave trade, and it was their mahogany which furnished the majority of places in Lancaster, including the town hall. So it's what we do with that information. You know, do we rip out everything related to the slave trade? And that is not what we're about. I think it's acknowledging it and what we do with that information in the future. Signpost people, make them aware of it, take ownership. And as long as we do that, then we are progressing. Otherwise, what's the point of all this information? So how we live now, you know, no one could have predicted a year ago that we would be looking forward to our daily walk and be confined to our homes. You have to look at the pros and cons. And for me personally, last year is probably where I felt I did the most for myself, and I used, you know, the opportunity of being at home to launch this activism work that I am doing with Lancaster Black History. As a mother of 3, it's been a testing period. We were never meant to spend 24/7 with our families, and it's also trying to find that escapism and accepting that our mental health matters. And I feel personally, I would, you know, going out walking, I've discovered places in my local area that I would not have discovered if we were in this pandemic. We have never appreciated the simple things like a festival or listening to live music. And I think at the end of this, people are just going to be grateful for the smallest things in life. And I hope they do. I hope the world changes after this. And it wasn't for nothing.
Hi everybody, welcome back. So, I mean, that's the first time I've seen any of those films, and I'm sure that everybody else will feel, you know, that they were very powerful, thought-provoking and moving, and I'm just overwhelmed by the quality and the honesty and the rawness, really. So we've got about 10 minutes, just under 10 minutes for some questions for everybody. And I'll sort of start with one whilst the audience pops some questions into the question channel. Kyle, for you, which was the most challenging story to film and create?
So they all came with their own challenges, of course, as anything like this does. One particular challenge that was probably, you know, the hardest to overcome was the migration film. So I don't speak a word of Arabic myself, and so we had to work with a quite complicated system. So we had a translator with me, so I could ask questions, because the ladies, Malak and Rima, they understand English to a certain extent. Their English is decent, but they still would rather have had translators. And I felt that it was important to have them answering as they felt most comfortable. So I didn't want to tell them, you know, can you answer in English, please? Because I felt that would have felt inauthentic. So it was worth the challenge for them to answer in Arabic. So we had a translator there for the questions and answers, and then we had to give all the footage to a different translator as well to help with the subtitling. So that was a whole process, and there were a lot of challenges with that. So if I had to pick one film that was the most challenging. It would probably be that one, but they all came with their own individual challenges as well.
So Geraldine and Shane and Rebecca, you won't have seen any of the other films, will you? So what was your sort of gut reaction? You know, I mean, you know, how did it? You know, Geraldine, how did you feel about the whole?
I had tissues. I had tissues ready. I just, I think you don't know how to prepare what you're going to see, and the different stories. You could really see how it's impacted such a range of people, and we're all living locally. And Kyle really got that across. I feel like it was like it didn't matter if these people had recently moved to Lancaster or they've lived in Lancaster their whole life. This pandemic has impacted them in some way or another, and just watching it back, you know, I just feel it was really good to see what we're all proud of. You know, we all have something to show for it still, you know, and skills and ambition. And I feel like none of us, whatever group we were talking about, it came across that we still won't be beaten by this pandemic. And, you know, whether you had your own business or you're an artist, whatever your profession, that message really came across. And I think Kyle really captured that, even in the 6 minutes he had, you know, to give to each other of us.
Rebecca, what was your sort of, what did you think about the other films that you'd never seen before?
Yeah, I just found it really moving. I think it's just an excellent job as a filmmaker. Like, I'm very privileged that I know Rima Malek and Geraldine's godmother to my children, so I know her really well. And yet, when I saw that film, I was crying because you just captured the essence of it and what she's been doing so well. And the same with Shane. I was like, oh my gosh, like, it was just so beautifully captured. And I think speaks to the magic. Like, the small plays, as Shane said, like, we are a little bit behind sometimes, but we also have these brilliant people who make it what it is, and for you to capture that in those films is just, yeah, beautiful.
Shane, do you see yourself as a bit of a Morecambe Banksy?
And I'm probably older than him and probably been going longer, so I'm not entirely sure about that comparison. Although I'm a fan, obviously I'm a fan. What the feeling that I'm left with from seeing the films is, yeah, it's a lovely warmth that's filled me from watching these people that the story's about and being impressed and thinking, you know, she's my neighbour really. She's only a mile down the road, and look what wonderful things that they're doing. And I'm obviously going to be ordering that recipe book as soon as I get off here as well. And so well done, Kyle, for that, for being behind the camera and allowing the warmth and humanity that was in front of you to come through.
Well, that was a lovely comment. But a comment, one of the questions, Kyle, is: are you going to plan some follow-up films after lockdown?
That's a fantastic idea. You know, it might be the pessimist in me speaking, but it's too soon to say. You know, none of us know how it's going to go. Obviously, it's something that I'd love to do. That would be fantastic. But yeah, we'll put a pin in that and come back to it when things are maybe a bit safer.
So Matthew was asked an interesting question, and he said, what's the one thing that each of you thinks local people can best do in the future to help with the themes covered by these superb stories? Anybody like to tackle that one?
Just ask that one again, sorry.
So Matthew Scott has asked, what's the one thing that each of you thinks local people can best do in the future to help with the themes covered by these superb stories? Any thoughts?
Sorry, Shane, but if I could just say that, I think that the main thing that is sort of been my goal throughout all of this is to start a conversation, to talk to each other. You know, we've all been through thick and thin through the last year. We've all, you know, had our own struggles and our own hurdles to overcome. And it's easy to lose sight sometimes of what other people are going through. And that's one thing that I hope came across with all of the films, is that we're all going through such wildly different things. You know, it's strange that we like you said earlier, we're neighbors, but we're going through such different things, yet at the same time it's all because of this one problem that we're all facing. So I think that the best thing that we can do, to relate it back to the question, is just listen to each other and talk to each other.
I think that, you know, that's a good sort of point to end on. And there's some lovely comments in the comments box. You know, superb set of films, very moving. Thanks to everybody involved. You know, what an extraordinary, moving and inspiring set of films. Well done to everybody involved, and some very important messages that have been delivered as well. So, you know, I think that's a lovely sort of point to end on. So I'd just like to say, on behalf of Litfest, thanks to Kyle, Geraldine, Rebecca and Shane, and also, you know, to the other Shane and to Naomi and Helen, you know, for their really, you know, for the rawness of the stories, for their honesty. And, you know, for to all of you for answering the questions from the audience this evening. You know, and here we go, here's a plug. So to enable us to develop and create similar future projects, we need your help and generosity. So if you can make any donation, big or small, via the website or via the donation button to enable us to work on future festivals, please consider gifting this evening. And if you wish to view any other of this year's festival events, please visit our website for more details. And thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your thoughts and comments, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.
Thank you.